Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 7 consisting of Khairatun Ni'mah, Gusti Rafi'atussyifa, and Sari. We will present our paper entitled Language Change. Language change is studied by both historical sociolinguistics, the subject of language change, and possible factors involved in such a process has for many years prompt interest. Investigators have shown renewed interest in the loss of non-standard varieties and the process of standardization. Diachronic change or historical linguistics. A diachronic is a period of time when a phenomenon as in language or culture occurs or change. Study of the diachronic, study done over time. The diachronic period is defined as the period of time when words have changed in a meaning. The way that magic was used in youth culture during the 1980s and to a lesser extent beyond. To describe good things, language is therefore studied in terms of how it changed in usage as a result of its study. And then synchronic change or sociolinguistics. Asynchronic linguistics since a descriptive language, a limited time period even that ignore historical antecedents and is not based on current events and analysis of language at a given point in time, called synchronic linguistics. The time studied may be present or past. That language, such as Latin, can also be studied synchronically. The synchronic study of language refers to comparing different spoken dialect or a language within the defined spatial region and during the same time period. And then next we have types of change. There are three types of change. The first one is incremental. Incremental change attempts to solve problem with small systematic steps and provoke change over time. By using incremental means, a government can reduce the risk and focus on trying to improve the system they already have in place rather than starting from scratch and creating a new one. And then the second one is decremental. Decremental is word not used anymore because the less usage of the object. And the third, replacement. Replacements is words or structures. And then next will be explained by the next presenter.
Next is causes of change. There are political factor, technology factor, social factor, and foreign influence factor. For political factor, many times language change has some kind of political root, such as human migration and invasion. When people move to another country and learn a new language, they learn their adopted language imperfectly. They then pass on this liked imperfection to their children and to the people in their social circle, and eventually alter the language. So, there are some kind of political factors, and the next is for technology factor, technology creating difficulty for the English language users to keep track on new vocabulary and expression. In fact, language itself changes slowly, but the internet has speeded up the process of this change even more quickly. For example, the computer language, there are so many new vocabulary that change by technology change itself. For social factors, when the social change, it's gonna affect the language too. So people with different level of social status respond and perceive things differently, and vocabulary and phrases differently. And the last but not least factor is foreign influence. One of the most common reasons for one language to borrow from another is when it needs to refer to nations and things that have been newly introduced to its speakers. For example, The Italian word pizza only entered English when the food to which it refers was adopted by English speech communities.
There are three of level of language. First is phonological change. On a purely phonetic level, one could say that sound change has to do with an increase or decrease in sonority. Segments are usually strengthened in syllable initial position and weakened in medial and final positions. At lexical or word level, it is possible to comment on a number of aspects of language change. These usually involve the introduction of new lexical items into the language. Although words also fall out of use, they are by definition rarely noticed to be doing so. One way in which new words enter the language is by borrowing from another language. Borrowing is the process of importing linguistic items from one linguistic system into another, a process that occurs anytime two cultures are in a contact over a period of time. Next, syntactic change. Syntactic variation is more likely to be conditioned by internal linguistic factor or depend on question of style and context rather than external social factors, since syntactic structure are repeated less often than phonological ones and are thus less available for social assessment. Fourth, semantic change. Change on the meaning level of language is largely dominated by two forces, metaphor and metonymy. The first, metaphor, has to do with non-literal use of words. The second, metonymy, is a type of change where new meanings arise from something closely related to another meaning present in the discourse, frequently within the relationship of part to whole. Metaphorical change can be seen in polysemy, where a figurative meaning of a word develops alongside a more literal one. For example, at the foot of the mountain for the primary meaning of foot as part of the body at the base.
Okay, that from us, and thank you so much for you guys' attention. And we are sorry for our mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.